writing a paragraph. So your learning intentions for today is you're going to learn how to write an informative paragraph and an objective summary using a very specific structure, making sure that you include topic and concluding sentences in your writing. Okay, so a few things that you have to know. All paragraphs absolutely must have a topic sentence. This topic sentence is going to answer the question that you've been asked, like in your writing prompt, it might answer the question, or it's going to state the purpose of the paragraph. So if you're writing about central idea, then it's going to have the name of the text that you read, it's going to have what the central idea is, it's even going to say the words central idea. So the topic sentence is going to answer the question of your writing prompt or state the purpose. Sometimes it can do both, okay? It has to have a topic sentence. It's got to be first and foremost. All paragraphs in 7th grade must have evidence or supporting details, okay? We, in 7th grade, cite evidence directly from the text. We typically cite 2 pieces of evidence from the text, so 2, all right? And sometimes we, depending on the type of writing we're doing, those details or supporting evidence will be written in our own words. So we're going to have some evidence. We're going to have some things written in our own words, okay? You cannot have a whole paragraph of just evidence from a text. That doesn't work, okay? That's not your writing, that's someone else's writing. So even though it's cited evidence and you've given credit to them, you have to have something with it. What are you thinking about that evidence? And that's where the next part comes in. So the next part is elaboration, okay? Connection to the evidence. Of the evidence to the analysis. So if you're saying that the central idea of a text is that someone is the greatest scientist of all time, and you cite evidence to prove that they're the greatest scientist of all time, then you have to connect that evidence to your analysis, okay? So you have to show and explain that how this piece of evidence illustrates the greatest scientist. How do the 2 things connect, okay? And then you got to have a conclusion sentence. That's important. You got to summarize your paragraph. You got to wrap it up. What was the whole paragraph about, okay? Restate your topic sentence in a whole new way. That's important. All right, so let's talk about that and the difference between an objective summary, okay? So an objective summary is a type of paragraph, okay? Here's what an objective summary is and what it is not, all right? So an objective summary is something that summarizes the text in a few sentences. So you might have 5 or 6 sentences in an objective summary. It's going to tell the name of the text and the author. It's going to tell who or what the text was mostly about. It's going to tell you a central idea, or it's going to answer that question. And it's going to include some of the key or the most important details, okay? So that's important. Now, here's the other part of an objective summary. You cannot have your opinion in an objective summary, okay? You cannot be about you, so you have to leave out all those personal pronouns. You don't need to say I think or I believe. The fact that you're writing it already means that you think it or you believe it. So you don't have to put those phrases in there. Just leave those out, okay? And objective summaries don't always have evidence directly stated from the text. They might, however, have details from the text that you've written into your own words. So objective summary and paragraphs, they're going to be structured very similarly. Some will have evidence cited directly from the text. Objective summaries probably will not. So let's put some of this into practice. Our focus is going to be on just structuring a paragraph in which we use evidence from the text, okay? So take a look at this picture that you see here, all right? We're going to analyze this image, okay? This is called slip or trip. So here we've got Miss Queenie Vellupides. We've got her husband, Arthur, and Arthur doesn't look so good, okay? Here's their kitchen, something cooking on the stove. You can see the steam rising up. There's a glass of something in his hand. So let's read what happened. At 5'6" and 110 pounds, Queenie Vellupides was a sight to behold and to clasp. When she tore out of the house after a tiff with her husband Arthur, she went to the country club where there was a party going on. She left the club shortly before 1 in the morning and invited a few friends to follow her home and to continue to talk. They got to the Voluptuous house about 10 minutes after Queenie, who met them at the door and said, "Something terrible happened. Arthur slipped and fell on the stairs. He was coming down for a drink of milk. He still had the glass in his hand, and I think he's dead. Oh my God, what shall I do?" The autopsy conducted later concluded that Arthur had died from a wound on the head. Okay, so take a look at this picture. All right, you're asking yourself, did Arthur slip down the stairs or was he tripped? Okay, so ask yourself that question. Look at that picture very closely. Look at all the details in that picture. Now, here's that picture again. I want you to draw this table on a piece of notebook paper. Just pull out a piece of notebook paper and draw this table on it, okay? And let's look at some different pieces of evidence to kind of support whether you think he slipped or whether he was tripped, okay? So, on this table, at the very top, I want you to ask yourself this question: did he slip or was he tripped? And you can see that I think he was tripped. You do not have to agree with me, okay? Regardless of what you put here in this table, I want you to have 2 columns, okay? Your evidence to support, this comes directly from the picture. This is what you see in the picture, okay? So my evidence to support that he tripped, I said the image shows him lying face up on the floor with his feet on the stairs. So I'm pointing out that his feet are up here and he's lying face up, okay? Now, how does that show that he tripped? How does this piece of evidence support the idea that he was tripped on the stairs, okay? Well, here's my thinking on that. Usually when we fall down the steps, our feet are at the bottom and we land face down. Or even if we land on our backs, our feet are at the bottom. His feet are up on the steps, okay? So that kind of tells me that things don't quite add up, that he slipped, okay? So I want you to think about your analysis. What do you think? Did he slip or was he tripped, okay? Pause the video here and add at least 2 more pieces of evidence from the picture to support whether you think he slipped or tripped. Once you've added your evidence, explain how that evidence supports your claim, okay? So pause the video, add your evidence. Okay, so now let's take that table of evidence and explanation and let's turn that into a well-structured paragraph. This is what we're going to expect to see from you as 7th graders when it comes to writing paragraphs, okay? So we're going to start with a topic sentence, okay? So in this case, we are telling what we think, whether Arthur slipped or tripped, and whether Queenie had anything to do with that. So we're going to start with a topic sentence. Sometimes it's going to be called a claim, depending on the type of writing we're doing. Queenie should or should not be arrested for the murder of her husband because of several key pieces of evidence. Okay, so you would decide here whether she should or should not be arrested. The second sentence you're going to write in your paragraph is going to be that first piece of evidence that you have. The most important piece of evidence that proves Queenie's guilt or her innocence is when the picture shows blank. You're going to fill in that blank with your piece of evidence, okay, that you pulled from that chart or that you put in that table, okay? Then your next sentence is going to be your connection. How does that evidence show the guilt or innocence, all right? So where you explained, for example, when I said that he tripped, I would put Queenie should be arrested for the murder of her husband because of several key pieces of evidence. The most important piece of evidence that proves Queenie's guilt is when the picture showed Arthur's feet up on the stairs. This shows her guilt because most of the time, or usually when people fall down the stairs, their feet are on the bottom. Okay, so you can see how I'm supporting that. Evidence number 2. Okay, also one has to consider. Now notice, I didn't say also you have to consider or I have to consider. I said also one has to consider. So one person or one has to consider, and then you pull another piece of evidence. Okay, and then again, in that chart, why did you pull that piece of evidence? How does that support the idea that he slipped or was tripped? All right, evidence number 3, finally, Queenie is clearly guilty or not guilty based on the fact that blank. Fill in that piece of evidence. How does that piece of evidence support your claim? And then your conclusion. Got to have a conclusion sentence. Therefore, or in conclusion, the evidence clearly leads one to conclude that Queenie is guilty, or that Queenie is innocent. However you want to end that paragraph, okay? So, conclusion sentence, therefore, or in conclusion, some transition words in there help show that we are coming to the end of your paragraph, okay? Now, I want you to practice this. I want you to write your paragraph on that same piece of notebook paper where you put that table. Turn that paper over to the back, take it down to the bottom half of the paper, and write that paragraph. Make sure you indent at the beginning of your paragraph. Use capital letters at the beginning of your sentences. You put periods at the ends of your sentences. You have a topic sentence. You have a conclusion sentence. Write that paragraph out on to notebook paper, okay? Pause the video here and do that now. Okay, now let me go back a screen. Nope, not going to be able to go back a screen. Before we do this, I want you to take that paragraph that you just wrote and click on the Microsoft form in your Kidum document. In that form, I want you to upload a picture of the paragraph that you wrote on notebook paper. I want to see how you wrote it on notebook paper. Okay, so you can upload that into that Microsoft form. And then there are some self-reflection questions. Okay, some questions that walk you through. Really go through that paragraph and read it with a fine-tooth comb. Did you start with a topic sentence? Okay, answer those questions. They're really quick yes or no questions, but really read through your paragraph and make sure that you answer those questions. Show me a picture of your paragraph. I want to be able to look at it. Okay, pause your video. Go do the Microsoft form. Okay, here we are. We're going to come back. Now I want you to think about the lesson in Amplify with Red Scarf Girl. Subunit 3, Lesson 5. You had to, one of your Lesson 5, Activity 5, let me say that. You had to really think about Geely's feelings when they're writing the Dazzy Bow, okay? So you saw her classmates writing Dazzy Bow, she saw her classmates writing Dazzy Bow, and then she was supposed to write Dazzy Bow. And you were supposed to write a paragraph about that scene, okay? So I want you to be thinking about that particular scene. On whom does the text focus? Okay, this is going to help you plan it out, plan that paragraph out, make some notes on a piece of notebook paper. On whom does that text focus? On whom does this whole scene focus on? What's happening during that scene? What's happening during the story? Make some notes about why are her classmates so eager to write that Dazzy Bow. Imagine you came into school one day expecting to have a lesson, and instead nobody's here, and you're given huge pieces of paper and you're told to write Dazzy Bow about criticizing the teachers, okay? So why were her classmates so eager to do that? Okay, I mean, think about it. One classmate didn't eat lunch, and the teacher gave her a piece of bread, and that teacher was criticized for taking care of the student, okay? So why did that turn against the teacher? So why were classmates so eager to turn on them? With what does G. Lee struggle the most? Okay. Why is she struggling with this? And so how is that different from her classmates? So think about those questions and make some notes on your paper. Okay. All right. Then you're going to go back into that lesson 5, activity number 5, where you had to write about it. Make sure that you start with a topic sentence that states the main purpose of the paragraph. So here's an example. In her memoir, Red Scarf Girl, classes are halted and instead students write Dazzy Bow. Or students write what? You could come up with your own words there. Then you're going to start adding detail and evidence from the text. G. Lee's classmates are eager to write the Dazzy Bow because. Why do you think they're so eager to write the Dazzy Bow? For example, give a piece of evidence from the text. This is where you're going to cite evidence directly from the text. Use an evidence-based term. So, for example, in paragraph blank, okay, use a piece of evidence of a classmate writing the Dazzy Bow. All right, and then connect those ideas. How does that piece of evidence show the eagerness to write the Dazzy Bow? How are those two things connected? Okay. Then you're going to transition that. How does that compare to G. Lee? On the other hand, G. Lee feels what? What is G. Lee feeling about this Dazzy Bow? Okay. For instance, cite here a piece of evidence about G. Lee. Okay. And then connect it. So this illustrates her what? How are those two things connected? Okay. Then add a conclusion. In conclusion, from G. Lee's perspective, okay, what's the Dazzy Bow to her? What are her feelings? Okay, give her perspective on those things.